Thanks for joining us today for the inaugural NUKG 24/7 first set of interviews. First up, we've got none other than Mr. Soulecta. I couldn't think of anyone else better to kickstart with than Mr. UKG himself, remixer extraordinaire, and garage shared mainstay. How's it going, mate? Thank you for joining us.
Good. You're making me blush, mate.
I was going to say, do you know what? I haven't yet got like a little jingles board set up. I need to do that so I can do like a round of applause. But I may add a round of applause in there, post production and all that. How's it going? You all good anyway?
Yeah, man, all good. Everything's all good.
All set. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to know you.
Yeah.
I would imagine most people who are garage fans are going to know you. There may be the odd one who might not. For the benefit of anyone who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about Soulecta. Sum up Soulecta and what Soulecta's all about for us.
Sure. I mean, Soulecta originally was a project that I came up with in early 2016 at a time when most of anything garage related, well, there wasn't really much garage about, a lot of bass line, a lot of really hard digital sounding music. Sort of the closest thing to garage was sort of bass line music, and it was very hard and a bit too over the top. And I saw there was a gap in the market. I've loved garage since I was basically 10 years old. Saw a gap, thought there's only like a handful of people doing it. I wanted to throw my hat in the ring. Started making stuff that was influenced by the old school sound from like the late 90s, early 2000s, and kind of wanted to throw in sort of modern production techniques at the time, create a new project, and then see what happens. So that's kind of what the Soulecta project was about. Since then, it's been a mad journey. I've achieved like a lot of what I set out to do so far. It's been crazy. And that's kind of it in a nutshell, really. It was just sort of, I saw a gap and I went for it.
Yeah, wicked stuff. And so you, how long had you been producing or sort of dabbling with production for before that?
Yeah.
When did your production journey start, roughly?
I would say I started messing about on like FL Studio. It was Fruity Loops back then. About 10 years before, when I was sort of 15, 16. I messed about, and then I studied music production. I went to uni and studied music production. I was on Logic then. But again, I kind of mainly just did the coursework, like the work that they were setting me. I wasn't out. I was making beats and stuff, but I didn't really know where I wanted to go sound-wise. I was at that period in your music production where you make loads of different stuff. Like where you're making a bit of like hip-hop and like some house and some hardcore and some garage. I was drum and bass. I was making different genres because I didn't really know where I wanted my sound to be. And then after I finished uni, I decided that I wanted to make sort of more deep house. That was really popular back then. That was like 2012, 2013, when you had like Dusky and Hot Sense 82 and all that kind of stuff was in the MK and all that. So I was making that kind of deep house stuff for a while. But yeah, and then I thought, you know what? It's not that far off from some of it's quite garagey, but it's just a bit slower. But no one's really doing the garagey thing. So about 2015 time, started making more garage, and I really enjoyed doing that. I started messing about with two-step more, and I really enjoyed it in 2015. And then 2016, that was when Soulecta came. So about 10 years prior, I was experimenting for 10 years before I came to the thought that the realization that I wanted to do garage. That was my sound, and that's what I really enjoyed doing. And that was a project that I wanted to put like 100% of my effort into. So about 10 years.
I think that's probably like that kind of organic arrival at a decision on which direction you want to go in after you've had all those years of experimentation actually is probably really beneficial in the sense of enabling you to kind of expand your palette. And then when you go, I want to make a bit of garage, you're already kind of in the loop of, right, I know I can do this and I've got this idea, so you're kind of well prepared. Did you find, I mean, because I studied music tech at uni myself, I don't know if you found the same thing. I ended up doing, and I don't know if it was just my uni or if this is across the board, I ended up doing all these kind of random ethereal soundscapes and kind of sound effect based stuff. I don't know if that was part of your journey, because I know you mentioned obviously hip hop and drum and bass, but did you also have that kind of artsy eclectic side of things going on as well that kind of inspired you?
There was I like some of the modules were like electronic experimental stuff, a bit of sound design things. So there was an element of that, but I feel like I learned a lot of my sound design probably after uni, just putting the hours in on synths. You know what I mean? Like I got myself a Moog Sub 37 a few years prior to Soulecta, maybe like 3 years before. I learned a lot from that synth just because I'd spent the money on it and I thought, right, I've bought this thing, I need to learn how to use it.
Make it work
and read the manual, learned what every single like button and knob did on the Moog, and then from that I was able to kind of just forcing myself to learn sound design from having the Moog, able to transfer it over to like the digital synths and stuff, and I felt like my sound design became a lot better after I forced myself into doing it on the hardware. On the hardware, it's a lot more because you can use two hands to play with the knob.
Yeah.
It's just, if I'd recommend it to anyone, even if it's like doesn't have to be expensive, but like a budget synth that has all the usual cut-off filters and LFOs and oscillators and stuff, just to do that, just to get to really understand sound design. So there was a bit of sort of experimenting beforehand, but I'd say a lot of it was from just sitting there for hours, just playing about with sounds and learning how to. For me, I wanted to make those old school garage sounds. A lot of them are on the like Korg M1s and Tritons and all that. Those sound, the organ, you know, the M1 organ and the Plucks and stuff like that. The Rhodes keyboard. A lot of that stuff wasn't on. They weren't making music on like Massive and Serum and Silent back in the day. But nowadays, in Serum, for example, you can make a lot of those sounds. Like those Wookiee basses you can make them really nicely in Serum and stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I'd say. A lot of it's just experimenting and playing about with sound design. I feel that's a lot of what helped me.
Oh, wicked. And what about because obviously you've addressed like the synthesis side of things. What about the sampling side of things? Because presumably they kind of focused that on that in your degree as well, did they?
Yeah, so I'd say with sampling, I did a lot of like I would sample mainly drum. Most of my drums are sampled. All my kick drums, a lot of my snares, top loops. I kind of use a mixture of like loop hacks and stuff like that, and other loops that I've like ripped and stuff, and I've processed them a lot, like sidechain them, cut the EQ on them, change the transients on these loops to blend them into the mix. But I do sample rather than sampling like full sections, because obviously these days with clearance and stuff, you know what I mean. It's a lot. Back in the day, in the 90s, when you're pressing on vinyl, you wouldn't get you could sell vinyls and not get done for it, because you could sell a white label, you know, with just like a whole track, like a bootleg. You could sell it in a vinyl store and not get done because it wasn't. You couldn't track it. The major labels couldn't find it because the white label wouldn't even have a name on it. You know, and it would just be called like, you know, white label 1 or whatever. So nowadays, obviously, with sampling, it's like for original music, you should get it cleared if you're going to put it out. So I don't really sample like full length bits or like 30 seconds clips or 15 seconds. I just sample like little hits and like maybe little vocal sounds or little stabs or little 4-second loops that I'll tweak and throw them into the track. I find that that's how you get really cool sounds, is by using little snippets that people can't detect, or you sample them from really abstract sources.
Yeah,
you know, like an old Breaks record from 2002. You know, from the I sampled some stuff from one of the Fabric Live CDs, Plump DJs, which I got which was from 2001 or something.
I remember that. That's a wicked CD.
Yeah. There's a couple of my tracks. I'm going to say they came out a few years ago now, but a couple of my tracks where I used a few sounds from them, and I made some cool tracks using the sounds that I'd sampled from them, but they were just little snippets. So yeah, that's how I approach sampling. It's more snippets than full bits, you know.
That makes a lot of sense. You raise an interesting point when you're saying about like in terms of clearance in the modern day and stuff, because obviously we all know about like loop masters and prime loops and stuff, and you go and you listen to the packs and stuff. I don't want to criticise anyone, but I do question the legitimacy of how much of that is truly original content. And I've definitely downloaded the odd garage pack and gone, well, I know that snare from. Do you know what I mean? So it's rife, isn't it? And it's
there's a couple of loops. There's one like Rhodes loop that I've heard like, I don't know, 5 times. Like everyone uses. Well, not everyone, but people have used. I feel like if you can find a sample that no one else is using, then cool. But don't if all of your tracks are just based on loops that you found on sample packs, like if it's like a chord loop or something, then you need to I feel like the odd track. I've got a couple of tracks where I've dug deep in a sample pack and found like a salsa loop or something like that, maybe chopped up a little bit. But if you found it, you'd be like, oh, that's from that pack. But then I'd make like another 10 tracks that have no loop, that have nothing in them. You know what I mean? So it might be the one odd one where there's one where it's like, well, I've made a fresh bass line on it, some fresh drums. I've like sped it up and stuff, made a few tweaks to it, and I'll do the odd one where there might be something like that. But if you're just reliant on loop packs for all of your melodic lines, then that's not good. Yeah,
it's kind of limiting, isn't it? So yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's good if you can kind of mix it up a bit. Yeah, if you can take inspiration and build something around something, create something original. That's the aim, isn't it?
Use it as a foundation, but build something really fresh out of it. I feel, and then, but obviously, like using stuff that's just like so obvious is a red flag for sure.
Yeah. Oh, so you kind of touched on it at the start when you mentioned obviously like you got into garage, but one of the questions I wanted to ask was like why garage specifically? Was there something specific about garage that drew you in?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like garage music, obviously, like growing up in the UK, we've like as a country we've had so many genres that we've like pioneered, like, you know, jungle, hardcore, jungle hardcore drum and bass, obviously UKG. I feel like with garage, it's kind of a mixture of so many different genres. Like house music, obviously, is a foundation. Jungle and drum and bass with the bass lines and that kind of stuff. Um, Also R&B as well, like US R&B, the vocal side of it. I feel like it's just a good blend of everything good about music or like dance music, and I like the tempo of it. I like playing house music above 130 BPM. I like playing it faster. I feel I used to be massive into hard house and stuff as well, so that's a bit faster. That's like 140 plus, but I've always liked it a bit faster.
Oh, interesting.
But being able to, and I like vocals. I like melodies. I feel like with garage, you can do like melodic stuff, but you can also do bassy two-step. You can do so much. It's so broad. You've got speed garage. You've got the dark two-step. You've got like you've got rap on it. You've got R&B, really vocal stuff, really poppy, cheesy stuff as well. There's so much, and that's what I like about it. Is just, creatively, I feel like there's so many places you can go and get away with it.
For real. And I've noticed that with you as well, is that you tend to dip in and out of all the little subgenres within garage. You make a bit of two-step. I've heard a bit of speed garage from you, and the bumpy kind of 4/4 sound. It's nice, I suppose, as an artist to have the flexibility, isn't it, within your bracket to kind of go, oh, I'm going to do something a little bit different today.
I feel like if you're like really if you're like a bassy D&B artist, you do like jump up, and then you start doing stuff more like Shy FX or more liquid. Your audience is going to be like, oh, this isn't. I like this guy because it's all tear out. Like the same with like a lot of dubstep, like modern dubstep and stuff as well. Whereas with garage, I do feel like you can get away with, or me personally, that I've kind of built my sound around being broad. So if I want to make a vocal track, I can do a vocal track that I like to listen to, not necessarily playing my sets or playing clubs, but I can listen to it, put it out as something that I can. A lot of my stuff is for listening; it's not for clubs.
Yeah.
So and then I can make club tracks as well that I play out, or a speed garage bootleg that works in the club. So it's having that versatility that I like. That's why I like the genre so much, because I can creatively be myself. I'm not just only into club music or only into like pop music or sing vocal stuff or R&B vocals. I'm into all of it, so I can mix it up. So I feel that I can express myself with this particular genre.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you touched actually there on your DJ sets, and you said you might make certain things for your sets, but potentially other things are for listening at home and whatnot. I was going to ask you, like, obviously, a lot of the questions I've kind of written down to ask you were about production, because I'm a sort of production nerd myself, so I want to know about that kind of thing. But obviously, you're an experienced DJ as well, and it would be interesting to hear you kind of summarize what people can expect if they come to see you in that live setting, in terms of, are your sets kind of geared towards a certain kind of vibe at the moment? Does that change depending on the club night and whatnot?
No, 100%. I feel like when I first started out, I was like making music just for me, like just for what I liked. I didn't really think, because especially pre-COVID, like there was like nothing really when it came to new garage. Like all the garage nights were like purely old school, and I did play at some of them, but it was difficult. I say difficult, it was just the audience was they come expecting old school things, and then when you put someone new school in who isn't going to just go in, I'm not going to spend all this time in the studio making new garage to get booked for like an old school garage night just to go and play Flowers. Do you know what I mean? Like why 100%. Like why put in all this effort to just like conform to what like everyone else, the audience, it's a mature audience. Obviously it's mostly a mature audience who are going for nostalgia. They're not hunting new tunes. So I'd be like the odd one out at some of these events. I'd come in and I'd play maybe like the warm up or something, which is fine, because as soon as I come off, it would be like, what you want, ooh, where, you know what I mean? And it would be all that, and it's just great. I love all those tunes, and like Flowers and Gotta Get Through This, and all classics, 21 Seconds that would come on, but that wasn't what I was about. And you have to, and at that time I was like, I've got to do something different and move the scene forward, and now, I mean, we could talk about now 2024 and the last couple of years it's completely different, but back then before COVID it was like that. So as a DJ, like I kind of would just play whatever, like, I just play only new music. I feel like I'm there to play, Soulecta. I'm gonna do new music then, so I'd play a set of all new music. And then after COVID, obviously clubs started coming back. I feel like over COVID, a lot of more young people started getting into garage, like, and obviously with our club shut and stuff, it kind of gave new garage a bit more time to kind of breathe, because you didn't have the old school events dominating. And then basically what happened is a lot of young people, a lot of Gen Z now love garage. They're all into it, and they've basically done their own thing with it, which I play these shows. I work with the artists. I work with a lot of younger artists now, who are like 18, 19, 20 years old. When I play in the uni towns, it's all like there's no one older than 23 at these shows. We've done like a lot of the clubs, they've been packed out with just students and stuff. So it's definitely moved a long way since 2019, early 2020. So when it comes to DJ sets, yeah, I mix it up. I play bootlegs, I play speed garage, I play like obviously stuff, unreleased stuff that I've got, like but I'm not playing like chilled garage, like the vocal, like, you know, I don't play a lot of MJ Cole. A lot of these guys, they're out for a night out, they're out to have a good time.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff, a lot of their entry points to garage have been like, say, Interplanetary Criminal. He's especially one that I feel has been a massive entry point for this generation, and obviously Sammy Vergi as well. And he's got that fine balance of everything. But when you see Sammy play live, it is, you know, it's bouncing. Like he doesn't play his chill two-step stuff, which is really good, obviously, but he won't play like some of his album tracks from some of his older albums. It'll be bumping a lot of, you know, it'll be a club focused set. So I feel like you've got to, as a DJ, you've got to play. You can't be like, even some of my tracks that I put out last year, my 2 singles, Real Love, I don't really play that out because it's so I like it as a radio track, but it's too singy, you know. And I'll say that about my own music. Like, I'm not going to play stuff that's too singy, like in a set where it's like a sweaty basement in Manchester, you know, or Bristol, or like a Function One sound system in Bristol, where it's like, you're not going to go too down the vocal side of it. You're going to keep it, you know, clubby.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah. It's like there's a time and a place, isn't it? I guess if you got booked for like some little Ibiza chill out bar like Cafe Del Mar or some kind of Sunday, then there might be the avenue for you to play some of that more chilled out 2-step stuff. But totally get, you got to play for the audience ultimately, haven't you? And if that's what
they're out on a club night, you know. It's like, I guess with the old school garage, you can, you know, with those tunes, some of those vocal tunes like Stroller Amma, Imagine and stuff are so big back then. And for an older audience as well, I feel like older audiences didn't grow up with really hard bass music, so the drop wasn't so important for anyone over the age of 40. Whereas young kids, they've grown up with, you know, dubstep and drum and bass and techno and stuff like that. So and now obviously with the sort of a lot of the speed garagey stuff being popular last year, and you know, they're expecting, you know, drops are part of the culture now. So that's got to reflect in the DJ set. Really, you've got to keep the energy up. So
yeah, for real. I mean, I've noticed not so much in garage, but some, like if you look at some of like the main room sets now, it's really interesting. Like you mentioned the drops, because they'd almost, I mean, I would use like Fatboy Slim's set at Glastonbury last year as a prime example of it, where you would kind of build to the drop, but then not actually let the record drop and then go into something else. And I found myself sat there getting a bit frustrated because I was just like, oh man, I want to hear that tune drop, and then you've just switched it. It's an interesting kind of element.
That's like what they do in D&B a lot of the time.
Yeah.
You know, like where they do double dropping. They'll like build up, and then it'll be another tune, or they'll double drop it, or they do that quite a lot in D&B. To do it in a house set, it's not something that I've experienced. I don't know whether I'd like it either. You know, when I go out and I try when I can to go out to Ibiza, and I go to the house nights there. I love doing that. I haven't really experienced it like that. It's always the flow is always there. So to see a set like that, it's probably. It's a bit out of the box, to be honest with you, for a house set, I would say.
yeah, for sure. You mentioned hard house earlier. Actually, is that like the harder side of things? Obviously, your focus as Soulecta at least is certainly on garage. So, is the kind of harder side of things something that's in the rearview mirror, or do you kind of keep your ear with what's going on with that at the same time?
I quite like that hard house is kind of coming back a little bit with young generation. Like for them, see, I grew up listening to Tidy Records and Nucleus and Lisa Lashes and Tidy Boys and like Lisa Pinup. Oh my god, there's so many names that I used to like. I used to go raving when I was 13. I went to my first rave when I was 13. Wow. Went to some festival, saw the Tidy Boys, Yoji Bai Mehanika. He's this like crazy Japanese hardstyle DJ. Lisa Pinup, like I think Lisa Lashes as well. I saw all these on the Tidy stage, and it like blew my mind. That's what got me into DJing. I was like just a little kid. We managed to get wristbands at that age. Because
how did you manage that?
My mate, one of my best mates at the time, his cousin was a drum and bass DJ called J Magic. He did a Fabric Live CD back in the day. Yeah. Like he's still about actually, and he was DJing on the drum and bass stage. So he was able to. He had obviously like guest lists for the festival, and he was able to get his wristbands for this festival. And so we got to the gate. There were 3 of us. We got to the gate. These 3 14-year-old boys, and they were like, they tried to. I think they tried to ID us. But we already had the wristbands like before. We like picked them up from my friend's auntie's house, James, the DJ's mum's house. We went there like the day before and picked up the wristbands in advance. So we had them already. So they like kind of had to let us in. It was weird. They were a bit like, you're not supposed to be here, because we looked like kids. And so we were in this rave, like listening to Hard House, which no 14-year-old listened to at the time. All of our friends were into R&B. This was like the era of Usher and Nelly and stuff. All of our friends were into R&B at school, and we were into Hard House and like drum and bass. And we were in this rave, and all these like people were looking at us like, oh my god, like you're old enough to be my son, you know, like there were people in there who were in their 30s and stuff at the Hard House rave who were like looking at us like, how are you getting here? And we just had like the best time, and that's when I got into DJing. So it's through Hard House, and I listened to it for a good till I was about 17, and I was going underage raving a lot to these Hard House raves. And this was a period where you couldn't get ID'd as well. Like, I mean, you could get ID'd, but you could use a fake. Like, you didn't need a driving license or a passport. You just get like
dodgy US cards and whatnot.
Yeah, like one of them like UK identification cards.
Yeah.
I had a guy at school, paid him a tenner. Some guy in the year above at school, and he'd come back a week later with something he'd like printed, you know, like just a card with that he'd printed on with my picture and a fake birthday. And I used to use that to get into like clubs in Brixton, like the Fridge and like all these other Brixton Academy, like underage for these Hard House events. So yeah, that's kind of my story with that. So like I like that the newer generation are like kind of discovering it. Because for them, it's probably new. Like they wouldn't know about this old scene type, big scene back then when it was big. They just think it's like it could be a new track, and they're like, there's a guy called Automatic who's making a lot of Hard Housey stuff. And yeah, it's like you know, I don't know whether I'd make. I mean, I have tried to make a little bit of it actually, but it's more M1 organ Hard House stuff. But yeah, I never say never. I play some sort of harder stuff at the end of my set, but I haven't got fully into the Hard House thing yet. We'll see. I wouldn't mind, but it's such a change of sound from where I'm at with Soulecta, you know, like to go from making garage at 135 or 134 to like, I don't know, never say never. If I get inspiration, then who knows?
Yeah. Well, sometimes if you're struggling for inspiration in one avenue, going down another one can kind of reinvigorate it all, can't it? So
I just want to blend it in so that I can still fit it in my sets. I feel like maybe I'd go up to 142 BPM at the end of my set. There could be some stuff, but I just need to. Yeah, just need the inspiration for it, really. So, yeah, you know what I mean? That's what it is. A lot of it's just inspiration, you know, getting that spark and then being like, oh, you know, I've just made a Hard House track. Wicked. Let me try to play it out, you know?
I'm glad you mentioned inspiration, because the next thing I was going to ask you, and you kind of touched on this earlier in terms of inspirations, key garage inspirations, influences, like with a pivotal artist that spring to mind when I ask that.
For me, there's really two, I would say. Well, in my three, really. If you look at everything that I've made over the last 7 years, would be the three top producers are going to be Sunship, MJ Cole, and Todd Edwards. Those are the three for me. In the early Soulecta days, I was trying to basically be the modern Sunship. That was what I was. If you go back to 2016, 17, like anyone who's watching this, like go into Spotify or Beatport and you go back to that era of when there was no garage about, I was trying to make I was really experimenting with fusing at that time was like you got tropical house and like EDM sounds, synthy sounds. I was trying to fuse that with two-step. That was my goal at the time. Like take Sunship sounds. Okay, I've got a song called Walk Away, which came out in 2017 or 2018 maybe. That's like a vocal two-step track. I was just trying to be Sunship with that track. I was just trying to copy Sunship with that. And I really like that track. But again, at that time, it was just no one else was doing that, you know? So there was a gap for that. And there was another track I did, Sammy Porter remix of True Colors. Again, that was very Sunship influenced. That was like EDM meets Sunship stuff. So that was what I was doing early on. That was the kind of sound that I went. And then as I progressed, sort of a bit more NJ Cole, a bit more Todd Edwards. I've got a track which came out in 2020. I can't remember. I can't remember what it's called. But
you're too prolific for your own good, mate.
Yeah, that was like me just trying to be Todd Edwards. I was like, no, and completely admitting it, I was trying to be like Todd Edwards. I was trying to make a Todd Edwards style track. There's been a few, especially late 2019, early 2020. So yeah, those three are like my three sort of ultimate inspirations. Obviously, like I'm going to give a nod to like Jeremy Sylvester's style as well, Club Asylum and all the stuff he's made, all the housey, garagey stuff. Like that's definitely. But yeah, you know that's where most of my thing from. And then the modern time, you know, really. In terms of sonically, I've always been a fan of Sammy, and everything he's done. I feel like what he's doing is the perfect mix of everything. So everything he does blows me away, really. I tell him this as well, to be honest, every time I see him. I feel like he's got that perfect blend of everything that you want in garage.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting you mentioned Sunship, actually. Do you follow what he's doing these days? Because obviously he's not doing so much garage, but he puts out a lot of jazz stuff. I don't know if you've heard any of that.
Not really, no. I get sent sometimes the mail outs. I've heard some of the two-step he's put out the last few years, like some of the stuff he's collabed with a few singers that I know, but I haven't really listened to his jazz stuff. I'm not like I don't mind a bit of jazz, but yeah, I like stuff. I don't know. Has it got drums in it? Does it have
No,
drums
not
in it?
really. A lot of it's
Yeah.
instrumental, like just piano. It's
Okay.
him on the piano because obviously he's quite accomplished as a keys. You know,
Yeah,
he's
and he
from
plays
that band
good
background,
stuff.
wasn't he?
Yeah.
I'll send you through some links after we're done with
Yeah.
this because I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll check it out for sure. But I haven't really dubbed. For me, like when it comes to Sunship, I just want to hear the two-step stuff is what got me into him.
yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, I get sent obviously if it's garage, I normally get some it's normally on some sort of promo mail out or something that I'll get sent through. But yeah, no, I'll definitely check it out. Sure.
It's definitely, that old Sunship kind of classic garage sound. I think because he did so many official mixes back in the day,
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people think of when they think UK garage, isn't it? You think of all of those big hits, and
Yeah.
there's definitely something to it. It's a formula that worked, and it was tried and tested, and he did it over and over, and it always kind of hit the spot.
Well, like some of my favorite garage tracks, like they're the mainstream, but like the Mystique remix that he did with the sound of the DJ playing
Yeah,
Jam, love
yeah,
that. Obviously the Garage Girls, that his mix was used as like the main mix, but I love that. I love the when I was a kid, I just remember I loved like the M1 organ. I loved the structure like of the intro when it was like the intro. Like, I loved all that, and then also like the little harpsichords. He uses like the little harpsichord
yeah,
sounds, the little melodies. Like all this, I love his melodies. He's a really good melody writer, so I feel like I like the sound design and the melodies and that was the thing that I really liked about him, and like his arrangements as well. He always used to do this thing where, like after the chorus, he'd do like there'll be like an extra 4 bars. It's like difficult to mix, but he'd add an extra 4 bars on or an extra 8 bars on, and it kind of messed up if you're mixing every 16.
yeah.
But I really liked how he was able to add in this either 2 bars, like a bar here or two, an extra couple of bars at the end of the chorus. It was just different. I liked it, it was different. Made it harder as a DJ, but I liked it. Yeah, so there's something about him that, yeah, for sure, is definitely one of my top artists for sure.
Yeah, no, cool. I mean, in terms of obviously you've got a lot of videos of yourself in the studio, and some of those
Yeah.
have gone viral.
Yeah.
You did the masterclass, didn't you, a few years back?
Yes.
But for the benefit of anybody who hasn't seen any of that stuff, can
Yeah.
you kind of outline? I don't know if you have a certain process you follow when you're in the
Yeah.
studio.
I mean, my favorite thing to do, and I guess this is one of the reasons why, like with the bootlegs, why especially when I first went viral, I just went crazy because it was like I'm gonna make the most of this moment. Like this might not last, and it doesn't. None of these things last forever. Like with anything with social media, especially things like TikTok, it's like you'll get like people will go viral for or like there'll be TikTokers that get big for a bit and then they fall off. If you're a TikTok content creator, or if your personality is I'm going a bit off. I'll come back to the question in a sec, but at that time I really wanted to just like make a big impact, and I did, which was I'm grateful for. But because I was always starting with a vocal, like for me, if I have a vocal there first or a track to start out with, I find bootlegs the easiest thing to do because you've already got so much material to work with. So in an ideal situation, I'll get sent a vocal, and then I'll just work to that. I can work quick like that. I struggle when it's like I have nothing to work with. If it's just blank Ableton, I might start with the drums. A lot of the time I'm a drummer, so I love programming drums and getting good sounding, like tough sounding drums. So I can start with the drums and then I'll put a bass line in. But I do find I struggle with the mid elements to start. Like I struggle with coming up with stuff. I can play chords and do chords in, but because like especially I can do like the musical side of garage, but because I'm playing out a lot more now, so I'm making more club stuff. So I don't necessarily need chords in my tracks all the time.
Yeah.
So now it's like I'm thinking, right, I need something with a good drop. So it's like drums and bass line. But then sometimes I just find I get bored a little bit because I don't have those chords to work with or a musical structure. There's less music involved than a lot of the clubby garage. A lot of it's just like bass lines and a cool vocal sample. That's a lot of what is popular or like what's coming out at the minute. So I do struggle a little bit, if I'm honest with you, on that side of things. But if there's a vocal like to work with, if it's a rap vocal or a sung vocal, then yeah, then I'm flying. I can just get there. Give me half an hour and I'll get something.
Nice. And you mentioned, so obviously you're using Ableton as your DAW.
Yeah.
You mentioned Serum before. Are there any other bits of kit or plugins that jump out at you as your go-tos?
I feel like, my favourite synths, my favourite one is Serum at the minute. I feel like with Serum, it's just got such a good sound engine. Like compared to Massive, so I've got the old school, the original Massive. I've made loads of my own sounds on there, but they just sound like, I'm not gonna sound like crap in the mix, but I have to layer them. I have to layer them.
I know what you mean.
Like I have to spend a lot of processing, boosting on the mid-range on the EQ, or just spending a lot of faff processing those. The engine, the actual sound engine of it is sorry, Native Instruments, it's crap. Yeah, like it's crap compared to Serum, where it's like I can have one sound, like one bass sound, and that'll be it. Like I just put a side chain on it for the kick, and not like maybe EQ some of the low end out, just clean it up the low end a little bit, and I'm flying. You know, so Serum definitely massive gets mentioned because it does have good sounds in there. It's just you have to layer it with a sub bass or something. Silent is really good. The engine on Silent is really good as well. Really like Silent. For my sub basses, I've got one sub bass. Most of my sub basses are from a Silent patch that I tweak a little bit. Other than that, occasionally use Spire. Again, it's very EDM-y. I feel like it's quite too digital for garage. It's quite digital. Omnisphere is great. Again, expensive, but Omnisphere and Trillion. So Spectra Sonic stuff is really nice. Really high quality sounds. Especially Keyscape's good for Rhodes keyboards as well. Like they've got really nice Rhodes keyboards. Yeah, that would be like my core go-tos for sound design for garage. And the Korg M1, obviously the Korg. I think it's about 30 quid. Used to be anyway. And that for like your M1 organs and stuff like that. Your old school and the Korg Triton as well plug-in. If you want to go down the 90s sounds, you know, the plucks, the harpsichords, the M1 organs, all that kind of authentic late 90s sounds. Definitely those. They would be the synths that I would use.
Yeah, makes sense. Have you got any hardware at all, or are you mostly working out of the box these days?
Just the Moog Sub 37 that I bought. I've still got that. I don't use it enough to be honest, but just the Moog Sub 37, and then I use UAD Apollo sound card.
Oh yeah.
I've had that for about 10 years now, 10 years or so, and that's amazing. And that's it for hardware. And I've got a 40 MIDI keyboard and Native Instruments 49 key keyboard. I just feel with hardware like it's great, but you've got to sit and wire it. And I've got a mate of mine who he buys so many synths, and then he sells the same. He buys and sells them and he buys them, uses them for a bit, maybe one tune, and then he's back on using VSTs, and then he'll move house, or he moves around a lot because he's DJs around the world, and he DJs mostly in America. He just moved to America, and he bought all these synths, and I just make a joke like, oh, you're just gonna sell it, you're just gonna sit there gathering dust, and literally he bought all these synths, and then he moved like a month ago again, and he's selling them at a massive loss. He's buying them for like over $1,000, and like selling them just because he sold one for like 650 quid that was costing him over $1,000. Like he's just losing money on these things.
Definitely a money thing.
Now, like, living, people aren't prepared to pay. People are looking for bargains out there and stuff. Yeah. Music producers and stuff aren't happy. They want discounts. So yeah, I just feel like there's no for garage. If you're making trance or like stuff like really synthy stuff, like it might be worth the investment. But if you want garagey sounds, bass sounds, you need Serum 100%. You're not going to get. There are some wicked Serum packs out there, like for speed garage and garage, and you're not going to just spend $1,000 on a synth. You're not going to get those bass sounds if you want. You're going to have to do a lot of tweaking and stuff. So yeah, I would say these days hardware is. Get one synth maybe, but you should probably try and use it if you're gonna get it. That's how I see it anyway.
That makes a lot of sense. So a few years back, you put out an album by the name of Soulecta and Friends. Tell us a little bit about that and the process behind that, the collaborative elements. Was that done remotely? Was that a lot of in the studio? Because obviously we're talking around COVID time as well, aren't we?
Yeah, it was definitely. COVID happened. I was making I started making more clubby stuff, and then COVID happened, and it was like, oh, okay. Like, it was obviously it was a very unique time, and I was obviously as you know, I've been working with Garage Shared for since I launched it with them. I was their launch artist, so I've been with them since the beginning. And Gavin from the head A&R was like, listen, everyone's like sitting at home, like there's no shows, people are making tunes. Why don't you reach out to all the loads of people that you like, producers that you like, and see if they're up for collabing, and send some stems over. And during COVID, I was at creatively one of my peaks. I'd literally been had Soulecta going for 4 years, and I feel like I was really creatively still again. There wasn't a lot. There was garage was getting a bit bigger, but there still wasn't that many artists coming through. I was still kind of one of 10, 15 artists that were sort of maybe 10 that were kind of getting sort of some more recognition at this time, getting radio play and stuff, started getting plays on Radio 1 and stuff. So I was at like a real peak creativity when COVID hit, and I just reached out to people. It was all remote. It was all, I'd send stems over, send ideas, I'd make loads of sketches, send them over. We made 2 albums worth of music. The first album, once I'd had like 20 tracks, I decided to split them into two. So one album of more vocal stuff, which was the original Soulecta and Friends, and then a couple years later I put out the Dubs edition, which was like all the underground garagey, like more 4/4, dark two-step, less mainstream, more sceney, you know, garage heads for the heads, you know, people who are into 90s garage and stuff. So that were the two collabs, sides of collabs that I'd done. So yeah, that's how it was. Just a case of bouncing stems back and forth over the course of 8 months. Really, it came. Both albums were made. Majority of those tracks were made in 2020 from March until November, I would say, that year.
Right.
So we made 2 albums worth of music essentially, and then we released the first one in 2021 in summer, and then the second one in 2022 in winter, in November. So yeah, that was the plan. And then I did a little remix album as well in between. So I put a story post up on Instagram about, you know, does anyone want to remix my Soulecta and Friends album? And I got a response, like 10 people responded. So all people that I'd been chatting to or had known who were kind of making new garage. So yeah, I just sent them, I sort of asked them what they'd like to remix and stuff, sent them the parts, or gave them the options of a few. And then they came back and we put out that as like a little sort of, I guess it was like a 2-part. One was like an album, one was an EP, and then the other one was, there was so many, 8 tracks, so it was like an album. So it was like a 2-part release for the remixes.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, as a project, I love doing it and stuff. It was really something nice, but it was definitely something I did for the scene. Like, you know, it was more like, okay, there's all these people making garage. I want to put everyone that I like, producers that I like and respect and get on with, and friends of mine as well. Some of the people that I'd been friends with anyway, put it all together in a project, you know, at that time. I feel like things are very different now. Like there's so many more new artists, and a lot of the artists that I collab with then aren't that active anymore, you know, or they are still active, but I don't know, like, or they don't do garage so much anymore. They're kind of gone quiet, and but at the time it was a real project of love, I'd say, you know, and wanting to kind of make a mark on the scene at the time.
Well, it certainly did. Is there any plans for like to do a follow-up, or
No.
you got any views on albums?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of I won't be doing a collab album for a while. I just, as I said, like, you know, with albums and stuff, we've made the Soulecta and Friends 2 albums of that, the remix the remix dual compilation, and then I've done 3 Soulecta and Friends compilations, essentially the albums of all of the music that I did that year. So I had selected series 1, 2, and 3, and they were like compilations of all the remixes and all the tracks I'd done in that particular year. So I feel like I've put out a lot of the album stuff. I feel like now I'm focusing on singles mostly because, especially the way how the way how people consume music now is so different to 2000 or you know, any time up to Spotify. So let's say 2011, once Spotify introduced the playlist function, I feel like that was when the album became less important, because now, like, I'm sure you and any listeners who are, you know, over the age of 30 would remember burning custom CDs for the car.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you did. You do that?
100%. I did that. Yeah, a lot.
Just for generally the Walkman, like you would buy like 7 albums. You'd have like loads of albums. Like I used to make custom garage CDs, custom hip hop, drum and bass, just tracks that I'd listen to a whole album, and I'd buy a whole album for a tenner from HMV, let's say, and then I'd like 2 tracks from that, and then I'd have another album, and I'd like 2-3 tracks from that, and I'd want to listen to them all, just the ones that I like.
Yeah.
So I'd burn it to a CD, scribble on it in my little childish handwriting, you know, drum and bass, Duncan's favourite drum and bass, you know, 2004 or whatever, and then I'd have that, and I'd listen to that on my Walkman on the way to school, and that would be that. And now people are doing that with playlists, and I'd listen to that album maybe more than the album that had 10 tracks on it that I only like 2 on, right? So people do that, they playlist it in their own playlist. I get it. So you put out an album, people will listen to it once through, they haven't paid for it, or they're paying monthly for it on a subscription service. Unless it's very DJ friendly. If it's really if you've got 10 club bangers on there, then they might buy it on Beatport as a whole package, so they can have on the USB stick and stuff and support. But if you're making like more vocal tracks and stuff, and you have it, people will just pick the ones they like, add it to their playlist, and they won't listen to that album again in the order. I feel like the only albums that I listen to in an order now are like really old ones that have that nostalgic value. You know, like I'll listen to The Streets, the, you know, original Pirate Material. I'll listen to that the whole way through in the car, because that's what I did. I bought that when it was still an album era. So yeah, I feel like nowadays, with the way how streaming is, and also with Spotify algorithms and stuff, it's so algorithmic based, it's ridiculous. You're just better off pitching singles if you want to make an impact. If you're a producer and you don't have a big fan base or a big following, and you want to like you better off just like hitting the singles and building your following first via singles, and then when the hype's there, people are like, wow, that track was amazing, or these 3 tracks are amazing, then you do the album, rather than what I did. It's not a bad thing what I did. I wanted to do it at the time, but I didn't have a massive following, and I was focusing on album. Well, not massive, but you know, it was just had people that love my music, but like at the time it was COVID, it was worth doing, right? But now that we're out of COVID and stuff and life's back to normal and we're busy lifestyle, I feel like you've really got to have some excitement to put it out. I feel like it's better to really build up an excitement for the album rather than just put it out and all that effort gone into, and you might focus on 2 or 3 singles and you've got 7 tracks that are only going to be found if someone digs into that.
Yeah.
And they've got to be like, not a super fan, but they've got to be really keen, and you know what I mean? People don't have time, and they've got their own playlist. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. Obviously, you know, it's art, it's all art at the end of the day. I feel like it's my advice to any producers: do what you want, do what makes you happy. That's the most important thing. But if you're looking at like growing and building a fan base and trying to like just build your profile, it's better off doing singles for sure. Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting to get your insight on that. I mean, you mentioned sort of pitching for playlists on Spotify. Is that something that you've had a good amount of success with? Have you got any tips, say, for aspiring up and coming producers?
Do you know what? I've been in New Music Friday, I think once or twice, and like added to those garage playlists. And I've had some tracks that have streamed quite well. A lot of my tracks, to be fair, sometimes and I'll be honest, I had some disappointments as well. You know, I've had like release days where, and I think it's good to be human about this and be honest. Like I've had release days where I've just been depressed, you know, because I've been like, I put the track out, you know, I put love into the song, look at the streams, and I'm like, you know, I'm sad all day. You know, I'm sad. I'm thinking, well, this got, you know, for some people, you know, getting 1,000 streams in a day, or you know, is good, you know. But I was just like, some of my tracks have had 1,000 streams in the first day, which was always meant to be the best day. And I'm thinking, like, maybe I've made a shit record, you know. Maybe it's not connected. You know, no playlists, no nothing. Like, you know, it's like, it's depressing, man. And in a way, if I'm going to be human about it, it's off-putting, you know, it's off-putting. Sometimes I think, well, whose fault is it? Whose fault is it? Is it the label? Have they messed up on the pitching, or is it me? Is it my art? Or, you know, have I not made something that's not connected? There's so many like thoughts that run through your head, you know, and sometimes it's like, I'm now a lot more selective with what I put out as a single, you know, this year. This is why I put out a lot less at the minute, because I'm like, I want to make something that, do you know what? Or I'm now thinking about stuff more for clubs. Like, I don't care if it streams now. I don't care. Like, I'm just making, if as long as people hear it, they hear the little clip of it. It might have I used to make stuff with short intros, you know, 15-second short 2.5 minute tracks, 3 minute tracks. I'd rather make something 4 minutes that I know is going to say do better on Beatport, because DJs are going to want to drop that. It's something that they want to play in their sets. I'd rather it got played out and played around in the uni towns and stuff, and all the garage nights amongst the guys that are playing garage out, than a streaming track, right? I'd rather it do that than go for the streams, because again, there isn't even that much money in the streams anyway.
No,
so it's like, what's the point in killing myself up a really vocal garage that if it's not going to stream, you know, I almost don't want to go through the depression again. I'm tired of it, you know. I'm genuinely tired of it.
I feel I feel like a lot of people, unless they've made music, don't really appreciate how soul destroying it is to pour your heart and soul into something and then it not hit the way you're expecting it to. Particularly if you're feeling really positive about something, you're like, I've got a banger here, it's going to go, and then like you say, you go, oh shit.
You know, I personally like the records, but you know, but maybe that's me personally. You know, I don't necessarily like. I'm getting older and stuff. I don't spend all my time in clubs and raves anymore. I'm not 21 anymore. I'm not a student anymore. Like, yeah. So I do like the more vocal stuff as to listen to. Like when I'm out, like if I'm chilling and listening to stuff, you know, put on some MJ Cole, some like, you know, some of the jazzy 2-step that MJ Cole did back in, some of the remixes that he did back in the day. I'll listen to that all day in the car. I'm happy just listen to that, you know. But sort of, I do feel like vocal garage, a lot of it doesn't really connect too much with a lot of the audience that's there now, which is the younger audience, and even the older audience that do listen to that like Flowers and stuff. They're not listening to new music anyway. So yeah, I don't know. There have been some vocal garage tunes that cut through. Like there's stuff that comes in the charts. Like there's the new Craig David track. I think he's got a club. I know there's a couple of bits, but with the bigger artists, it's like Georgia Smith and stuff like that. They're just going to do their AJ Tracy. They're going to have those occasional 2-step garage tracks that are going to do well. But in terms of like when you look at the scene and what the tracks that are popping, it's definitely more the clubbier stuff, not the kind of
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on it. You know, sometimes when you make art, you want to do it for yourself, but you also want people to like it and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's just getting that balance, really. And I feel like, I don't know, for me, I'd rather have stuff that people are like want to bank. Where I'm at in 2024 is I want stuff that people want to put on the USB stick rather than stream in the car kind of thing. I feel like that's where my head's at as we're right now during this interview. But it might change. Let's see. But yeah,
That's fair
that's
play.
how I want to talk to it all.
It's valid. It makes a lot of sense. I hear everything you're saying. You know, actually, like in terms of what's streaming, what's selling. I was going to ask you about labels because one of the things I've noticed with a lot of NUKG artists is there's a tendency. And I've spoken to a couple of people about this. Obviously, people have their reasons. There's a tendency with NUKG artists where they'll work with a few key labels, say, to kind of help establish their name, and then they seem to then kind of withdraw and start self-releasing their records. I've noticed that's not the case with you. You mentioned obviously that you were the launch artist with GarageShed, and you've kind of stayed loyal and done a lot of stuff with them over the years. Can you tell us a little bit like about your experience with labels, or like is that a conscious decision, and if so, why?
So essentially, I feel like with a lot of labels. So I've released even before Soulecta, I was releasing house music on some random, like I've released on labels before I had Soulecta. I've had other projects when I was making deep house. I had 2 or 3 projects. And it was kind of like what you'd do is you'd sign the record over, and then they would give you the artwork. They'd like they'd be fronting like 100 quid tops on the record. You know, they get you the artwork, they pay for the mastering, and they might send it out to a few DJs that they knew in their network, and they'd put it on Beatport for you. And when you don't really know anything about how it all works, and you just kind of want to, I've got friends of mine who are like, a mate of mine who's a dubstep DJ or producer and DJ, and he kind of like. I kind of say to him, maybe you should self-release because he's putting out these labels that are just doing free downloads, or they don't respond to him. They're not really doing much for the record. Like he's putting the record out with them. It depends on what the label's offering you, right? So if a label's just saying, right, you come out with us, we're just going to give you the artwork, give you the mastering, and we're going to just put it out and see what happens. You know, that's it, see what happens, and not really do anything else, then, you know, if you're a starting artist, it kind of makes sense. But, you know, to just get your name somewhere, to be associated with a certain label or brand, sure. You want to be associated with them, but I guess with GarageShed, what they did, and I'm not saying they did this for me. As I say, I was the launch artist, right? So they offered more than just like artwork and like mastering and put it out. It was like, you know, they were happy to front money to budget for music. We did a music video for We Know Speak London.
Yeah.
Like they were happy to do mail outs for Your Army. I don't know if you've ever used these promo companies. You know, we're talking like 600-700 quid plus VAT.
Yeah.
So a label, if a label's willing to invest in you, right, then it's a label worth, you know, they help get my music on Radio 1. You know, these are, for me personally, Gavin, you know, big up Gav, like, you know, we don't always see eye to eye on stuff for sure, but we get on well. And, you know, we generally do agree on a lot, to be fair, and we're good friends. And he's guided me and invested in me, you know, for the last 6 to 7 years. And the album as well, like, you know, anything that I wanted to do for the album, content days, we've got camera guys in a lot of my tracks. We've got content guys in to film DJ mixes. We did one, me, Jemmy, and Mighty Mo did one in Workhouse, which is now closed. And we booked a day, like we did an interview. You know, we did podcasts. We've had MC Neat down. When I had a track with MC Neat and Shosh. We did an interview day. We did a content day. These are things that if a label wasn't able to, you know, they're offering all these things as a label, which is, I don't know, there's a few labels, I don't see that many other garage labels happy to invest in an artist like that.
I think you're right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that would be why, you know, that's the core reason is that they invested in me and guided me over the time. Like, and that's not to say that I won't, you know, self-release in the future or work with other labels. You know, I've given, you know, they've got my whole back catalogue. They're in charge of my whole back catalogue so far, bar the odd bit and bob here. But, you know, it's a balance. And I feel like some of these artists will come through, but they'll come through as a newer artist, like, you know, and they'll come through a label, they'll release a tune and not really get that same experience that I've had from the label. The label will just put them out as a, you know, they won't do that investment because this newer artist, they don't know. A label's not going to invest in you and spend, you know, upwards of maybe, you know, $1,000 for the release and stuff. We're talking for all the content and the mail outs and stuff and the videos and all this stuff. They're not going to invest in you if they don't know you're going to stay with them, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of yeah, that's what I would say is like, so you would release on one label and kind of, and they would be like, cool, they put you out, and you might feel like, well, that label didn't invest in me like they invested with this artist or whatever. They thought maybe they'd get the same treatment, but because they're a new artist or they haven't really shown a indication that they're really keen to stick with a particular label, that label, any label, is not going to do that. So and then they might get management, and then the management are going to help them self-release, and they'll take care of the going to the distributor, directly, sorting out the artwork, all that kind of stuff. There might be a manager that can also, because self-releasing these days isn't too difficult. You can do it on Ditto and all. It's not too difficult if you just get the final master it yourself, or final master, get some artwork done. You can get a mate to do it, or go to someone, 50 quid, get the artwork done. And then the distributor can pitch to DSPs for you. The distro will pitch. So I feel like it's individual case by case. And I feel like, say with GS, for example, is that they just worked with me and invested in me in a more of a level that any level had ever done, sort of thing.
It sounds like a good deal.
Yeah. So I gave them my art. I invested. I gave them my 110% of art. I brought them the collaboration albums. I brought them in collabs with artists like Shosh and MC Nee and Mighty Mo. People that I knew. That I'd made friends with. Mighty Mo I've known for over 10 years now. He's been a friend of mine for over 10 years. I brought him in, I'm happy to bring in my things. And then I say, all right, here's the album. Here's what I want to do. And they'll go, yeah, let's do it. Let's do a content there. Let's film a mix. They'll come up with ideas. So I think it just depends on what the label's willing to offer back, If a label said to me, yeah, we're just going to take 50-50, own your music for life, and we're gonna pay 400 quid, 500 quid for the mail out, and that's it. Do one post on social media, and then off you go, or not even do the mail out, just basically sign your record, give you the artwork, pay 25 quid for the mastering, 20 quid or whatever, however, and then just off you go. One post on Instagram, which gets no engagement, because you know how it is now with the graphic and artwork, like not have any plan for the release, no content, not even offer to if it's a collab with a singer, not get any filming, then I don't think, once you're at a certain level, there's no point. You might as well self-release. So a big long-winded answer.
No, it's good.
That's a genuine, like, that's my opinion anyway, in my experience.
That's really good to get your insight. It's an interesting answer, and good to hear you've had that positive experience, and long may it continue, because it's obviously working for you and GS. So good luck with that. Yeah. Obviously, earlier you touched on, we talked about sort of inspirational artists, and you mentioned that one of the guys that's doing it for you from the New Breed is obviously Sammy Virgie.
Yeah.
Are there anybody else, any other artists that jump out at you that are doing big things that you're really, or sort of really to your liking at the minute?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like, I think consistency, I really like, and this is where the sound's going as well. But like, there's two really that stand out. Bullet Tooth and E-Fan. I don't know if you've heard of them, both of them.
Yeah.
They're both kind of, like they've got that. They've really got it on lock. That kind of two-step, that bassy two-step sound, which is really I'd say really is the sound of this year. That's what a lot of people are doing. I've made a couple of bits like that. It's not my favorite thing to make, I'll be honest, but I don't mind if I get some inspiration and stuff. I don't mind making stuff like that. But that's where I feel like the kids are liking. That's where like the younger audience is really enjoying what's going on down well in the clubs. So those two. There's a couple of other mentions. I like the kind of, again, hard housey sound, like the Organy, Bush Baby, Automatic. My friend ODF as well. I like the stuff that he makes as well. We've literally, I think, on today we've had a free download come out on Jemmy's 4/4 label. So he's someone that I know. He's local. He lives around my area. So I've known him for about a year now. I've known him and we met up and stuff, and he's come round. So there's a few of those guys. Yeah, like I feel like I'm liking where that is in terms of like the organic garage sound. I feel like the NUKG thing. I don't know. It's a hard one. I feel like, I hate to say it, I don't know if it's had its day. I don't feel it really got to have its day in a way. That kind of Kiwi, like 2019, 2020 Kiwi, vocal garage, bubbly garage sound.
Yeah.
We were doing Garage Shared at the time as well. Even stuff that Strictly Flavor was doing, because you're involved with them, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like even the stuff that they were doing in like just before COVID, that kind of NUKG peak. I feel like that's not really where it's at in the clubs, really, which sucks in a way. It's like, because that's the sound that I really like, But yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of the artists that were doing that kind of sound are kind of pivoting a little bit as well.
Yeah.
Because it's not clubby enough, and there's a lot of last year there's a lot of speed garage as well. Like that's really dominated. It influenced my sound. I didn't make a lot of speed garage prior to 2020,
Yeah.
and then last year I found myself. Even now I still find myself when it comes to reverting to that kind of sound. So yeah, but those artists that I listed are ones that I feel like are kind of they're on a wave that is like they're moving it forward in its own way. That I guess is kind of away from where I originally wanted garage to stay, but I like what they're doing,
Yeah.
and I back it still,
Fair dues. No, it's a really interesting answer. And also, like, one of the things that jumps out at me is I don't know how hot on the socials you are. Have you picked up on the return of Tough Jam? Because I find
Yes.
it a really interesting time for them to be coming
Yeah.
back now and doing that thing.
I know Carl and Matt. Well, I've met them many times. I met Carl. I've been around to Carl's house. I signed my first record. Technically, it was my first Soulecta solo single was with Carl Brown. So on his Too Tough for You label, it's called Slinky. Check it out if you haven't heard it. So it's a two-step track, bubbly two-step track, instrumental two-step track. And I went round to his house a few times. We've had many a chat about everything. Like he's got he's a very interesting character.
He's a good guy.
Got love for him. He's a very interesting character. Loves his music. Yeah, like so obviously he told me that he was never going to go back to DJing, like never go play out again. So to see that him and Matt are getting back together, whether or not they're playing out or whether or not it's just new music, if they're playing out again, I will be trying to go and see that because I know how good of a DJ he is. I know I've never got to see him, but I know his legendary status as a like with mixing and selecting tracks. And obviously I've known Matt for years. We've done tracks together and stuff as well. And yeah, to see them play, I'll be there, I'll be there. So if they're out playing, doing tours again, then that's great news. I do feel like the kids are still going to need to know. They're not going to know. I'll be honest with you, like with the younger audience, they're very, very, not all of them, some of them, like, but when it comes to history, they're not necessarily, they get a lot of their music from TikTok, a lot of TikTok is, a lot of their education is, and learning things is from TikTok. So I feel like it's going to be a big deal for nostalgic garage fans, people of people over the age of 30, and if they can get into whether or not they sort of really break through into the sort of Gen Z audience, like I'd love to see that. Let's see, but I'm excited.
Interesting. I mean, if they do, it could completely change the sort of direction of it, really, couldn't it? Arguably.
Let's see. Obviously, I do feel like that kind of 90s house style isn't popping in terms of what the Gen Z like. It's not. Garage house. I know there was this big thing years ago about garage. You must remember about a lot of people talking about it and stuff. And there were some wicked tracks actually, but that kind of 90s garage stuff, I like it. Bumpy garage, I like it, but I don't hear a lot of it out when I play at the garage raves or I see videos and clips of raves. I don't hear a lot of it out and stuff. So I'll be interested to see like where it goes and if it can spur on a new like for that kind of authentic sound, because even a lot of my stuff from my Dubs Edition album, and even the track I put out with ODF today, it's that's kind of Tough Jam style. So I can make that till the cows come home. So if that becomes popular again, I'm back in my comfort zone. I'm not have to worry about doing bassy two-step. Not even worry, but like I don't have to think about, all right, let's make something for the clubs for what's current bassy two-step or speed garage. I can make bumpy garage again, and be like, yes, I can play this in a set. This is what everyone's feeling. So yeah, like maybe they'll need a new movement. That'll be great. I'm fully behind it.
Fingers crossed, mate.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it. I was going to ask you where music's going stylistically, but I feel like we've kind of covered that in that little discussion, haven't we? One thing I did want to ask you, no cop-out answers, you can only pick one tune here.
Right.
Your favourite garage tune ever? And I'm aware that might obviously change with time, but just hit us with your thoughts right now.
The one that I always say is West Side by the Wide Boys.
Okay.
I've seen many interviews. Do you know what I like about it? I like the sax. I like how he's used Eddie. I love big up Eddie. Like I love him to bits. He's every time I've seen him a few times now. Like we've always got on really well.
Yeah.
He cracks me up. But yeah, like West Side by the Wide Boys. I loved it when I first heard Garage. It was on the first Garage CD that I bought on Pure Garage 2, and just love the sax. It's just cheeky, and then the drums. Like I like how the drums, the little fills and the drums, and then there's this section that it breaks into. And it's got a little vocal chops and like little keyboard, like dum. I can't even do it on
I know what you mean.
Like, it's got a cool little midsection and like the vocals. It's just so well built. It's like genius. Like that is the kind of structure and sound design. Like the way how they did that was just something that like is very unique to garage. So yeah, I'm gonna say West Side. yeah.
No, that's cool. I wasn't expecting you to say that. That's an interesting answer. Did you ever hear? I don't know how sort of close you were paying attention during that whole kind of early days baseline thing in 2006 through 2008. Do you remember the 2006 baseline version they did of that?
I'm not sure if I heard. Do you know what? I
It
don't
went
know if I
out.
heard.
It went out on Garage Jams. The only reason I mentioned it was because obviously you mentioned earlier in the interview that you were really into hard house, and it's kind of on the cusp of kind of hard house. So like if you like West Side, like I've got it here. I'm sure Ed won't mind me sharing it with you. I'll pop it over to you later because you'll love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, wicked stuff.
Oh, the Up North mix where it goes dom da 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 dom. Is it that one when it kind of? Is it? I know that Up North.
I think they went. Yeah, the drop's just insane.
I'm listening now. Yeah. Yeah, okay. I know they had the Up North thing was when that was all their baseline stuff.
Yeah.
I've just had a little browse. I don't mind I definitely prefer the OG version for sure. I prefer the more jazzier, funky version. You know, I feel like especially at that time when 2006, 7, 8, 9, that was when baseline you had like T2 Heartbroken drop around that time, and so yeah, for sure. I feel like I remember Wide Boys were doing a lot of the Up North mixes. They were doing a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Very much of that era, I'd say. You know.
It was an interesting time in sort of garage's evolution, that whole baseline thing, because it kind of went all speed garagey for a little bit there between 2005 through 2007, and then as you say, T2, your T2, TRC, TS7, they took it down a grimier route, and it kind of went off on a complete tangent. But yeah, man, I really appreciate your time. Before I let you go, I want to just do like a little quick fire round with you of random questions just to help kind of people get to know you better. Some of them are music based, some of them are completely out there, and we're just going to see if I can catch you off guard, and hopefully I get a laugh out of you while we're at it. Apologise in advance if anything's too off the cuff. Right, just quick fire answers then. This is a random one. You got any life goals, mate?
Life goals. I just want to be happy, mate. I mean, I am happy, but I want to continue to be happy and live a life of. I just want to be able to like just enjoy doing music. You know, have art in my life for the rest of my life. That's if I can continue having art in my life for the rest of my life. That's the goal. That's my main goal. Yeah.
That's a brilliant answer. I can't argue with that. I think I know your answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Analog or digital?
It's got to be digital just for ease of use. But I'm gonna nod to analog for the warmth of the sound and like that organicness of it. But yeah, digital just because it's just so easy and quick. It's the only reason why.
Makes sense. Favourite film, mate?
Predator with Arnold.
Okay.
I'm a big Arnold. I love 80s action films and stuff, and like just stupid punchlines. Comment, you know, it's just it's got to be Predator. Epic film. Watched it like a million times. Yeah.
Do you know what? You saying that, I might have to watch it again this evening. If you put it in my mind, it's got to be done. Have you got any pets, mate?
Yeah, I've got a cat, a little girl cat. Yeah. Yeah, it's great company in the studio. What can I say?
Yeah, it makes a world of a difference when you sat there for hours on end, doesn't it? For sure.
It does,
how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Yeah, how much wood? I was going to say wood. I was just going to finish it off with wood. I've got no answer to that. Just wood.
I warned you these were going to get a bit out there. Okay, that's about the worst one, so don't panic too much. Would you rather have crab claws instead of hands, or a dolphin tail where your legs should be? A dolphin tail probably. Yeah, I just feel like I could sit in a wheelchair. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to make music with crab claws either, would you? Do you know what I mean? How would you program in your beats and that?
Yeah, I feel like these days you need your hands. I'd rather have a dolphin thing and be able to swim underwater and breathe underwater, and then I can just sit in a wheelchair. I could just use a scooter or a wheelchair to get around. Yeah. Yeah,
fair dues. If the world political stage continues to escalate in the way it has been, and all-out war breaks out, what will you spend your last day on Earth doing?
Probably just indulging. I'd get all my friends together and have a big party, basically a massive party. Get the decks out. I'd spend all of my savings on a massive event, a big party with all my friends, everyone that I know, anyone that I know, music and just around from growing up, and just have a massive party. Just 100%.
That sounds like a good plan. I'll expect my invite in the post.
You get
wicked stuff. Well, no, I really appreciate your time. It's been an honour. It's been really interesting to get your insight on things. Before we sign off, have you got anything that you want to kind of plug? Any big projects coming up? Or anyone you want to shout out?
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I'll shout out everyone that I've worked with over the last, 7 years. You know, everyone in the scene, labels, GS, and all the artists that I've worked with. There's obviously so many to to name. Just and everyone that enjoyed. And I just wanted to say, like a massive big up to everyone that likes garage, is into new garage and pushing the scene forward. For me, it's been almost a dream come true that garage has become so popular again, especially with like a new audience and stuff. It was exactly what I kind of was hoping for when I started Soulecta. So yeah, just kind of just a big like, you know, it's great to see. And in terms of just if you want to know about my shows and new music, it's all just on my Instagram stories. And so just that if people who aren't following already, just follow me on Instagram, and I'll announce everything, all new music, all new shows on there.
And your Instagram handle is, for anyone who's
at Soulecta Music. That's for all things. So yeah, everything's on there. We've got some stuff will be announced later in the year, and just stay tuned. And and just again another thank you to everybody who's watched this interview today. And we'll see everyone soon.
Wicked stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Soulecta. Here's where I'll insert a little round of applause for you, mate. All good.